I sat at the edge of the bed, staring at my wife, Chloe, as she packed her suitcase. My heart felt heavier with every item she neatly folded and placed inside. She told me about this work trip a few weeks ago, a high-priority project in Barcelona, a dream assignment for her career. She was excited, but I couldn't shake the unease gnawing at me. "We'll text and video call whenever we can," Chloe said with a quick smile, not looking up. She always had this way of saying just enough to sound sincere while keeping me at arm's length. Lately, it felt like I was talking to a version of her I barely recognized, the late nights at work, the vague explanations, the way she'd stopped sharing the little things with me. "Of course," I said, forcing a smile. "Make sure you bring back something for me, a little piece of Barcelona." Her laugh sounded almost forced. "I will," she said, zipped up the suitcase, glanced at me, and planted a quick kiss on my cheek. "I'll miss you," she said, but her voice didn't quite match the words. When Chloe left that morning, I watched her cab disappear down the street. For the first time in our 4 years of marriage, I felt like she was leaving more than just the house. The first week after Chloe left, I tried to settle into a routine, work, gym, take out, repeat. I'd sit on the couch at night, scrolling through shows we used to watch together, but nothing felt right. The house was too quiet without her. We'd exchanged a few texts. She was super busy and barely keeping up with meetings. Something about it felt off, though. I couldn't put my finger on it. On Saturday morning, I decided to hit the grocery store. The fridge was practically empty, and I thought keeping busy might help distract me. As I pushed my cart through the produce aisle, a familiar voice called out behind me, "Hey Noah, long time no see." I turned and saw Jessica, an old friend from college. She was as lively as ever, her smile contagious. We hadn't spoken in years, but there she was, holding a basket filled with kale and oranges. "Jessica, wow, it has been a while," I said, genuinely glad to see her. "How have you been?" "Great, just got back from Miami, actually," she said, adjusting the basket on her arm. "Funny thing, I ran into Chloe there a few days ago. She looked amazing." Her words froze me in place. "Miami?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light, though my pulse quickened. Jessica tilted her head, puzzled. "Yeah," she said. "She was there for work with some colleague. I thought you'd gone with her, since she mentioned relaxing after a project. I assumed you were having a mini getaway together." My stomach dropped, my mouth went dry, but I forced a smile. "All right, you? I've been swamped since we got back. Hardly feels like I went anywhere." Jessica laughed and gave me a playful nudge. "Well, don't overdo it, workaholic." She waved and headed toward the checkout line, leaving me standing there with my cart and a mind spinning out of control. Chloe had told me she was going to Barcelona, yet Jessica saw her in Miami and with someone else that night. I sat on the couch, replaying Jessica's words in my head. "Miami, not Barcelona," I told myself. It had to be a mistake, a quick detour, maybe, but why wouldn't Chloe mention it? I grabbed my phone and scrolled through our texts, looking for any clue. All her updates were vague. "Work's crazy, miss you. Hope you're doing okay." There was nothing about Miami and nothing about relaxing. By Sunday, the unease was too much to bear. I called her office first thing Monday morning, pretending to be a potential client. The receptionist's cheerful voice gave me answers I wasn't ready to hear. "Oh, Chloe's on personal leave," she said brightly. She mentioned helping her husband recover from a leg injury. Such a sweet gesture. I barely managed to get through the call before hanging up. A day's personal leave. Helping me recover? None of this made sense. She wasn't in Barcelona, she wasn't at work, and she wasn't helping me. Chloe had lied to everyone, me, her office, maybe even herself. But why? That evening I started digging. If she was lying, I needed proof, something undeniable, something I could use. I scoured our bank statements, checked her credit card activity, and searched through her social media. I couldn't find much, but the few breadcrumbs I uncovered painted a damning picture. A charge at a Miami hotel, a restaurant bill for two. I didn't confront her, not yet. Chloe was smart. She'd spin some story, and I'd be left with nothing but doubt. No, I needed more. By the end of the week, I had a meeting scheduled with one of the top attorneys in town. I wasn't just going to confront her. I was going to outplay her. The attorney's office smelled faintly of leather and coffee. James Carter, a seasoned lawyer in his 50s, sat across from me. His sharp eyes scanned my face as I recounted everything. The trip, the lies, Jessica's mention of Miami, and the fabricated injury story Chloe told her office. James leaned back in his chair when I finished, folding his hands thoughtfully. "You're in a strong position, Noah," he said, "but you need concrete evidence. If she's been unfaithful, it could influence the financial settlement, especially since you've been building joint savings for a house." I nodded, the knot in my stomach tightening. "How do I get that proof?" "You already have a start," he said, tapping his pen against the table. "The credit card charges, the hotel, those are breadcrumbs. If you want undeniable evidence, you'll need someone who can follow the trail." "What are you suggesting?" I asked. James slid a business card across the desk. "Private investigator, discreet, thorough, and fast. If she's hiding something, they'll find it." The next day, I hired the PI. His name was Andrew, a no-nonsense guy with years of experience in uncovering secrets. He didn't sugarcoat things. "If there's something to find, I'll find it," he said, sliding a contract across the table. Over the next week, Andrew sent me updates. Chloe hadn't been in Barcelona at all. She'd spent 2 weeks in Miami, staying at a luxury resort with a man named Ryan, a name I'd never heard before. They weren't just colleagues. The photos Andrew sent left no room for doubt. Chloe laughing with him over drinks, the two of them walking hand in hand along the beach, and a particularly damning image of them embracing in front of the hotel. I stared at the pictures for hours that night, rage boiling inside me. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was calculated, elaborate, cruel. Chloe had lied to my face, deceived her office, and spent our hard-earned money on a vacation with another man. But anger wasn't enough. I needed action. By the time Chloe's return date approached, I had a plan. I wasn't just going to confront her. I was going to dismantle everything she thought she controlled. First, I secured our finances with James's help. I moved every penny of our joint savings into an account solely in my name. Chloe wouldn't see a dime of the money we'd spent years building. Next, I ended the lease on her house. It was in my name, and with her gone, I'd had enough time to arrange for a new tenant. Lisa, a single mother with a teenage son, moved in 2 days before Chloe was due back. Finally, I filed for divorce. James ensured everything was airtight, from the financial disclosures to the terms of the settlement. Chloe had no idea what she was walking into. The day Chloe came back, I waited across the street, watching as her cab pulled up to the house. She stepped out, tanned and smiling, her luggage trailing behind her. I couldn't help but notice how carefree she looked, like the lies she told had never even crossed her mind. She walked up to the door and paused, frowning at the unfamiliar car in the driveway. For a moment, I saw her hesitate, confusion flickering across her face. Then she unlocked the door and stepped inside. I followed a few minutes later, just in time to hear the sharp exchange. "Who are you? What are you doing in my house?" Chloe's voice was sharp, bordering on panic. Lisa, standing calmly in the hallway, gave her a polite smile. "Oh, you must be Chloe. Lisa. We just moved in." "What do you mean moved in?" Chloe demanded, her voice rising. "This is my house." Lisa's expression softened, almost pitying. "Noah said you'd be stopping by to grab your things. Everything's packed in the garage." Chloe's face went pale. "No." That's when I stepped through the door, my hands in my pockets, my expression calm. "Welcome back," I said, my voice cutting through the tension. Chloe turned to me, her eyes wide with disbelief. "What is this? What's going on?" I tilted my head, feigning confusion. "Oh, didn't you hear? I ended the lease. Lisa and her son needed a place, and this house didn't feel like home anymore." Her lips trembled as she tried to speak. "You can't do this." "I already did," I said, cutting her off. "Your things are in the garage, and before you leave, you might want to check your car. There's a folder on the passenger seat. I suggest you read it carefully." Chloe froze, her hands trembling as she fumbled for her keys. Without another word, she stormed to the garage. I watched from the window as she sat in the driver's seat, opening the folder. It didn't take long for her to realize what she was holding: divorce papers, complete with a detailed breakdown of everything she'd lose. She called me within minutes, her voice shaking with anger and desperation. "No, we can talk about this. This is crazy. You're overreacting." "I'm done talking, Chloe," I said coldly. "You lied to me, you cheated, you took everything we built and threw it away. Now you're going to live with the consequences." Before she could reply, I hung up and blocked her number. In the months that followed, Chloe's life unraveled. Word of her affair spread quickly, and Ryan, her supposed soulmate, vanished as soon as things got messy. She lost friends, respect, and the financial stability she'd once relied on. As for me, I moved on. I found a new place, rebuilt my life, and eventually met someone who reminded me what love was supposed to feel like. Chloe became a distant memory, a lesson in betrayal, resilience, and the strength it takes to start over. And as I sat in my new home one evening, laughing with the woman who'd brought light back into my life, I realized something. Revenge isn't just about making someone pay. It's about reclaiming your power, your future, and your peace. After hanging up the phone, I felt nothing but relief, no regret, no hesitation, just the cold satisfaction of knowing she was finally out of my life. Chloe, on the other hand, wasn't ready to let go. A few days later, I received an email from her. It was long and rambling, alternating between apologies, excuses, and desperate pleas to talk things out. She blamed the affair on stress, on feeling neglected, even on her upbringing, but nowhere in that email did she take full responsibility for her choices. I didn't reply. I forwarded the email to James instead, writing simply, "Add this to the file." I wrote simply over the next few weeks. Chloe tried other ways to get to me. She showed up in my office once, uninvited, but security escorted her out before she could even get past the lobby. She left voicemails, texts, and even messages with mutual friends, all of which I ignored. The final straw came when she posted a long, dramatic rant on social media, painting herself as the victim of a controlling husband who overreacted to a minor mistake. I wasn't surprised by her attempt to rewrite the narrative, but I didn't need to respond. The truth had a way of speaking for itself, and soon enough, people started putting the pieces together. Her public meltdown backfired spectacularly. Colleagues distanced themselves, friends she once relied on stopped answering her calls, and Ryan, the man she'd risked everything for, was long gone, leaving her to deal with the fallout alone. While Chloe's life spiraled, mine took a different turn. I poured myself into work, focusing on the projects and goals I neglected during the last few months of our marriage. For the first time in years, I felt free to make decisions without the weight of someone else's lies holding me back. But it wasn't just about work. I reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in a while, including my best friend Adam. Over beers one evening, I told him everything from the moment Jessica mentioned Miami to the day Chloe found those divorce papers. "Man," Adam said, shaking his head, "I always thought she seemed too polished, like she was trying too hard to be perfect." I nodded, swirling my drink. I fell for it though, hook, line, and sinker. Adam clapped me on the shoulder. "Well, you're out now, and honestly, you handled it like a pro." She didn't see it coming. He was right. Chloe had underestimated me. She thought I'd be too passive, too forgiving, too weak to stand up for myself, but she was wrong. About 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I met Emma. She wasn't like Chloe. There was no pretense, no performance. She was warm, funny, and real in a way that caught me off guard. We met at a charity event I'd attended with Adam, and by the end of the evening, we were deep in conversation about everything from travel to life's little quirks. It wasn't love at first sight. My heart wasn't ready for that. But it was the start of something I hadn't felt in a long time, hope. As Emma and I got to know each other, I found myself sharing parts of my story I hadn't expected to talk about. She listened without judgment, offering a quiet strength that made me feel safe. One evening, as we sat on the porch of her small but cozy house, she asked, "Do you regret how it ended with Chloe?" I thought about it for a moment. I regret that it had to happen at all, I admitted. But the way it ended? No, it was the only way to protect myself. Emma nodded, her hand resting gently on mine. Sometimes we have to lose something to make space for what we really deserve. Her words stuck with me for so long. I've been focused on the betrayal, the anger, the revenge. But sitting there with Emma, I realized something. Chloe was no longer my story. She was just a chapter, one I had closed for good. A year after Chloe left my life, I stood in the kitchen of my new home, watching the sunrise through the large bay window. The house was mine, bought with the savings Chloe had tried to steal. The walls were filled with warmth and light, a reflection of the life I was building. Emma walked in, her hair messy from sleep, and smiled at me. "Coffee?" she asked, already reaching for the pot. "Sure," I said, pulling her into a hug. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't looking back. The betrayal, the lies, the pain, they were all behind me now. Revenge had been satisfying, but moving on, that was the real victory.